Evolve 360, a holistic approach to life, is an exploration of learning through experience to transform individually and culturally as a whole by taking a 360-degree look at our quality of life, including the limiting beliefs, worn-out paradigms, and destructive habits that have led us to where we are today, and to instead create or revolutionize a new life vision that brings greater peace, appreciation, fulfillment, clarity, happiness, and joy as we ultimately evolve. So in this episode, Shelley and I start where we left off with a clear vision and take a look at how we are seduced by our own need to control our life circumstances and wanting what we don't need. FOMO, that fear that creeps in when we're missing out on something, and what we will do to negotiate our power out of fear to have it or to survive. Let's dive in. Welcome to Evolve 360 Shelley Shell Show with hosts
Cheli Grace
and Shelley Devine.
And
hey,
we're back.
Girl.
Hey, soul sister. How are you?
Great.
Another show, and we're going to do a little deep dive today, and we are going to talk about so many cool things, starting with archetypes that we totally love. I love archetypal language. And, you know, it's funny because we're living in this pandemic time, and I was running around the other day, like I'm sure everybody's been running around trying to find a can of Lysol. What we would pay for a can.
You can't get one. You can't get one.
They don't exist, right? They don't exist. So there I was running around, and my mind went back, which we should live in the present, right, not the past. Mm-hmm. But a girlfriend had just called me before this pandemic came up and wanted me to go with her to check out some purses. And, you know, we love Prada and Louis and all these name brands. Mm-hmm. And as I'm running around trying to find Lysol, I'm not kidding you, I must have gone to 5 different stores. And I'm thinking, geez, you know, 3 months ago, Lysol, please. And now it's
the
like
hot commodity.
Yes. It's like my perfume. Yeah, it's the perfume of the hour.
I know. You want to take it everywhere. You spray in your car handle. You get to the gas station to buy gas. You're spraying that. Then
you're spraying.
Your credit card out. You spray that after you touched anything.
So
wiping it down with something.
I know, and I couldn't find any, so I made some myself with tea tree oil and cologne and all these other things that I had. And I'm thinking, we've got to adapt. We've got to change. And if we can't get hung up with the things that we were so used to and let go. So at one point when I was like, oh my gosh, I paid like whatever for a can of Lysol, I'm like, stop. And let's get real here. I mean, what did people do 100 years ago when there was no Lysol? So we can live this out, and there's other things that we can do to protect ourselves. So that's why I'm thinking, geez, you know, the things that we put on ourselves to give us more pressure, because it's pressure instead of being simple. And simple. And the things that we do. Today's show is the seduction of ourselves. So we seduce ourselves with all different kinds of things that maybe they don't serve us. You know, I spent all this time and energy looking for a can. I was upset, and I'm thinking, why am I doing this? And then I'm thinking, you know,
would have been more fun
really
to
life about
a purse.
Girl, let me tell you, you know, I love beautiful things, but simplicity is beauty. To be simple is to be royal, because it's beauty. It's the beauty of things that are simple, like nature, a sunset. And this is what we have to start looking at. Yes, you know, we love beautiful things, and there's nothing wrong. And, you know, we need to enjoy our lives, but not at the cost of ourselves. And I think this is a great segue into starting with one of our favorite archetypes, with one of the 4 in our 4 core.
Yeah,
the 4
universal archetypes.
4 core.
This one, you know, I just want to qualify. It's not just for females. This is a man can be this one as well as a woman. We all have it. We all carry it.
Yes.
It's
And it's not,
universal amongst cultures. It's not just in the
yes.
American culture. You can find it everywhere in the world.
And it's energetic, because when we
Yeah.
talk about symbolic language and archetypes, it's an energy. It doesn't mean the act, but it's an energy behind it, and how we transfer that energy in different things that we do.
Yeah, it's what it
So,
represents. It's what it represents. It's like a cookie cutter little characteristic of an idea that we all understand
right.
what it is. We all
I like that
understand what
cookie
it is.
cutter. That's a really good way
Yeah.
of putting it.
It's a character trait.
It is a character of trait. And this is one of our core four. So it's the seduction of ourselves. And how do we do this? By taking away from ourselves and not allowing, really, I mean, there's all kinds of energy plays in this. And I'll give you a perfect example. And I think I talked about it the other day. It's someone called me because they wanted to see if I wanted to work with their corporation, but I just didn't want to. And sometimes we attach ourselves to things that no longer serves us, or we do things because we feel that we have to. And Shelley and I were doing, before we got on the call here, we were talking about sometimes even in relationships, the relationship with ourselves, that we don't allow ourselves to be free of things that the shackles that bind us to things that no longer serve us. Or we prostitute ourselves in ways where in to get a job or to do things. And we're not talking the physical act. We're talking the energetic act.
Yeah.
Well,
the other thing too is we're talking about the prostitute and how we sell ourselves. And it's not just the physical act of sex or selling your body. It is selling your ideas. It is selling, your integrity. It is selling your morals. It's selling yourself, if, out of fear that you might not survive. And how that works is if, like, you might sell yourself in a situation where, or in a relationship where I'm going to be with this person because I'm in fear that I won't survive. I need their income to survive. So if I, there's ways that you sell yourself. It costs you energetically.
Totally costs you. And
it costs you cell tissue sometimes.
And I want you to think about this, because this is really important. And sometimes we go over and above. We overextend ourselves because we want to be noticed. We want to be liked. We want to be accepted. And, we need to take a step back and say, okay, well, where am I taking that energy? And we had talked about your energetic bank account.
Oh, yeah.
I know, I love the energetic bank account. And this comes from Carolyn's work. And Carolyn is our teacher, and we love what she's done. And it's, let's say you have $100 and all of a sudden you start spending 1,000 of it. So you start the next day and you go to, like, you go, hey, Shell, can you front me $100? Because now I need another 100 for the next day. And can you front me another $100? And you're taking this from other areas of your life, whether it be your energy, your time, you're going in a frenzied state, because so many of us have been working in a frenzied state. And thank God for this pause up to a point. I know it's got a lot of connotations where we're totally shifting. But, here we are, and I'm like, hey, Shell, like throw me another $100, throw me another $100. And after a week, I owe Shelley $700 plus. So think of that as an energetic bank account. You're depleting your energy. You're cutting back on your sleep. You're totally taking back from who you are, and you're prostituting yourself by going out there and just sharing all this energy. So as you were saying, one of the things that the prostitute has is the negotiation of your power and how you use that power, because it depletes you. And it's about giving more for something else. Like, what's your agenda behind what you're doing? What is your negotiation behind what you're doing?
Yeah.
You know, it's all about the negotiation and the agenda. And, you know, we were talking about a job, and sometimes we'll go after something that might not serve us and is not something that we're passionate about because we know we need it. We need it.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's important for
exactly. But there, like, say currently in this time, we may have to take a position,
right?
And even though it might not feel right, you can be honest. That was one of the things that Carolyn would talk about, is at least prostitutes are honest with what they're selling.
Right.
You know,
so,
and there's nothing wrong with being honest with what you're selling and how you're going about doing that. Yeah, is being honest with yourself and why is the reasons that you're doing it. But you will lose cell tissue during that process. I mean, I can speak firsthand about that. I know I lost cell tissue when I negotiated going back into a relationship.
Right.
To see my kids, you know, to be with my kids.
Right.
You know, that was my negotiation, but that was my prostitute there.
Right. It was. And a lot of times, you know, it's okay to be aware if you have to take something because you have to survive, like a job, or you have to, you know, work in a group environment with people that you might not, you know, have the same values for, but then you've got to start thinking about a plan B. Yeah. And how many times have we been there where you're working with people, you're in a job situation and you're like, this no longer serves me. So are you going to continue in that job because it might hurt you energetically? Or are you going to start looking for something that's going to fulfill you so that you know that you have to do what you're doing, but then you can start something on the side, or you can start looking for something else. And I know in these times that we're in right now, everything's shifting, and, you know, we're not going to be, you know, the way that the job hunting was before with headhunters and people. The jobs are out there, but they're going to be more defined. They're going to be very different. People are coming up with very creative ways of doing things. Sure. And this is a great time to start thinking about your passions and how you negotiate and how you seduce yourself. That right now, maybe you're not going to do that anymore because you're aware. You're aware of your circumstance. You're aware of what you've done that you don't want to do anymore. And sometimes it's hard. It's hard that, you know, that you say no to things, but in the end, it frees you up. It frees you up. Yeah. It's that energetic, and we talked about what are you feeling in your body? It's that energetic exchange. The energetic exchange that you have with someone else, and what are the reasons why you're doing this. If you look at the prostitute, she exchanges her services for money. But when we talk symbolically about the prostitute, we're talking about an energy exchange, something that you give up, that you know that you are, and sometimes we're really not aware. Yeah. We're not aware. Yeah. You're giving up something. You're giving up something, and you're not giving anything back, or you're giving up something that compromises your values because you just feel that you need to do it.
Yeah, well, you need to survive, you know, like you need to, you might be in a fight or flight situation. You might be in survival mode. Maybe you don't have a roof over your head. So you're like, I'm going to go here because that's the closest thing or situation I can, you know, jump into, because, you know, and you're negotiating your power instead of maybe, well, this is the thing, which you had said from, you know, many from our earlier podcasts, it's about having faith in yourself and in God. And the prostitute definitely is the guardian of faith. And and instead of taking, you know, your guidance from external forces, you take your guidance from internal forces. That's what we've been talking about since the beginning, is about going inside and learning how to do that and trusting, and having, you know, that information, because your prostitute isn't your enemy. It is, it's a force. It's this energetic force that makes you aware that, oh, I'm selling my integrity here. Am I going to be able to say no? Am I going to have the courage to say no? Or am I going to like negotiate and say, oh, you know what, I'll go a little bit here. And I mean, the only example I know is for myself, where my prostitute came in big time, is when I was away from my kids. And it was really that fear of missing out.
Right.
I felt like if I didn't live where my ex-husband was, I wouldn't see my kids. And so the negotiation was, I'm going to live with him after we were divorced.
Right.
And so I could see my kids, either that or I wouldn't see them probably at all.
And a lot of us have done things like that.
Yeah. And
especially as a mom. I mean,
and that's a
mom
big
wouldn't
fear.
do whatever for their kids. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a big fear of missing out on their teens, on their and growing up years when you're separated, and you have to do it within two households. And if you don't, the income isn't there for two households and to maintain, like, schools, and if you're in different states or whatever, that's when a prostitute comes in. And I can tell you firsthand, I mean, I definitely paid in soul tissue for that.
Right.
And that's what the prostitute will do. But I did go into it fully knowing that my prostitute was active, and that's better than not knowing.
It's important to be aware. And this is what we're saying, because you knew that you were jumping into this. Yeah. You were aware, and you knew that there was going to be an exit plan, because your kids were going to grow up, and they were going to, go to college, or move, get their jobs, move on their own. And as you're aware, that's what we want you guys to understand, that when you're aware, then that way you can start learning and start trying to energetically balance it, so that you're not full force in this energy situation that might hurt you, like it hurt you, Shelley.
Yeah, it takes time to build your self-esteem in all areas of your life.
Yes, it does.
And
we're going to talk about that in a show, because we're all working on self-esteem all the time. Yeah,
it's a constant journey. It's an entire life journey. You're always like growing in all the, I mean, if you look at your life categorically, you have, like 12 or so different categories of your life. And at any given time, you might not be exceptional in one of them, like you might be dependent. For me, I was dependent. I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. So to have a career and then to go out into the workforce after, a 15-year marriage, that was like, whoa, wake up call. And that happens to a lot of people.
It does.
And so it's like, okay, you are going to negotiate your power here. But one of the things too is, like your passions, like when your passions come in, it's like, oh, wow. I know when I worked for certain places, I was like, okay, I'm done with this, because this isn't what I'm passionate about. And I mean, I sucked it up to start my own, business. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but I ended up juggling between, like the two
worlds my middle name
of maintaining my passion and then survival, and you're like, and that's really what it's about. And during these times, that's what it's going to be about for, people that are listening to this show, or, when they're out there in their own lives, they're going to be doing much of the same thing.
And this is a big point, because I did this too. I wasn't a stay-at-home mom. I was a career person. I've always had a great career. I've always been a boss.
Yeah.
But during that career, you're all of a sudden, you stop and you're like, hold up. I don't feel the passion here anymore.
Yeah.
I really want to do more. And at that time, and this is a great example of what we're sharing with you guys, because we want you to know that you're aware. So at that time, I decided to write a book, because that book was fueling my passion. And I was compromising myself. I was sabotaging myself by doing things that maybe didn't serve me at the time, like continuing to run this huge empire, continuing to, to juggle, to do different things, because we want to be liked. We want to be accepted. We want to be in different status groups and in different things. But what is that costing you at the end of the day?
Yeah.
It's costing you a lot. So to segue as to what Shell was saying, is that right now you might have to be doing things that are gonna stretch you. You might need to be doing certain things that you don't like, but keep in the forefront that awareness so that you can start tapping into that passion, and it helps you move on this journey, and definitely have faith, because we both have been through the peaks and the valleys, just like all of you guys have been. And having faith gets you to that other side. It's like the bridge. It's a bridge that just comes up. And all of a sudden, one day you wake up and you're like, oh, wow, I feel so light. And it's this bridge that you're like, all of a sudden, effortlessly. And that's how this podcast started.
Oh my gosh.
We just like super effortlessly. And we're just here because we feel that we have a service to do with the world, and to share our passions, and to share what we know, and to share the life work of someone that we totally honor, respect, and adore.
Adore
which
her.
is
She's
Carolyn Myss. And
her work's amazing.
It is. And we've studied with her the last Sacred Contact class that she did live. So we're here to go on this journey with all of you that are listening, because we're all changing, and God only knows what's going to happen next year, and where we're going to be, what we're going to look like, what jobs we're going to have. And who knows, maybe podcasts are going to be like chips on a phone. Who knows how things are just evolving so fast. But we have to take a step back, because so many of us live habitual lives, the lives that we constantly know. And in a former podcast, we talked about our cultural beliefs and what beliefs no longer serve us. And I know when I had to make that shift and change my whole life because of a divorce situation that I was in, it's hard. And we're going to have a whole episode on that, because habitual lives are lives that are constant, and none of us like change. We like our habitual lives.
We like to be in control. We like to be in control. And right now we're not in control. And the prostitute is all about control too. It's
that's true. You're like, snap.
Oh, she's related to, it's related to seduction and control of what we will negotiate. And we want that. And right now we're kind of out of control. But I wanted to circle back, because I thought you hit onto a really rich point, because there's so many career women out there that might be moms, and they're negotiating their time with their kids because
all the time,
juggling. And that's, it doesn't matter if you're a stay-at-home mom or you're a career mom, you're juggling. And same with the fathers. The fathers are juggling with that too, because nowadays men do want to be home, and experience their children growing up. So it's like, how when you were like, I didn't experience this, but I know other people that were around me were, is when you were raising your children and you were fearing of missing out on them when you were going to work and being this career woman, this superwoman.
Super mom.
Super moms.
Gosh.
And I know a few of them now. They're, clients of mine, and I'm like, wow. I'm amazed at what they do, but I know that they can feel like they might feel a little guilty, because they're doing this, and then they're asking themselves, why am I doing this job and dealing with this idiot who's not appreciating me when I have this child here that I want to spend time with, that loves me and appreciates me, and my husband appreciates me. So it's like this whole dynamic, and right now it might be changing yet again.
I think so, but it's to all the career working moms out there, and dads that also are juggling, because dads are some dads do a lot, some moms do a lot, but just to talk about that and my own personal experiences, I loved my career. I loved doing what I did, and I didn't want to stay home. That wasn't who I was. So yes, you juggle, you have a timekeeper, you have your calendar, I would take time off to go and hang out and see, what my kids were up to. I'd definitely go to all their games and after school activities. So you kind of, because of the nature of where you're at, to me, my time, and it's funny because now, my life is a lot more easier in flow, but I still at times find that my time, I am a very much of a time person. Like I'm very structured. So that has come up because of that. because I had to structure my time with my kids, with my career, with my job, you know, with being in my relationships, with hanging out with my family, with hanging out, with having time for me.
Right.
And let's face it, 10 years, 15 years ago, I believe we had more time within our day that we have today. Our world wasn't going as fast. So I don't know how I did it. I look back and I was like, wow. But I was in a career, and I also had my own side business. I had a side hustle, and I was doing national news media, and I was doing all these things. But, you know, you just do, right?
Yeah.
Everybody that's out there that is like type A like this, that always have had, you know, careers and kids, and you do, and you get people to help. I did have help, because if I didn't, I mean, it's hard. My heart goes out to the working parents out there that don't have, you know, extended family members that are there to help them and pitch them in. And I know my mom and dad helped me tremendously.
Yes, I had help too.
Yes. So, you know, it's important. But getting back to that working career, now I know that it's a challenge, because a lot of people, everybody's at home. The kids are at home, going to school at home. The parents are trying to work from home. And that's a huge challenge now. Yeah. A huge challenge, because it's important to have our own personal space. And how do you negotiate that power? How do you not, you know, sabotage yourself and give up maybe that time that you really need, those 10 minutes of quiet and solitude, just to reconvene, and to connect, and just to be, because we need that. We need that as human beings. Yeah. Some quiet time.
Totally. So we are creatures of habit, that's for sure. And
yes, we are.
And we like, you know, living those habitual lives, you know, like doing the same thing maybe over and over again, which is fine.
It's hard. Let's face it.
Consistency. I was just talking to, who was it? My brother-in-law. And he was like, I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day. Like I wake up in the morning, you know,
oh my God,
the phone goes off and I'm in the same day.
Well, what's been happening to me lately, it's like, what day is it?
Yeah.
What day is it? The other day I thought it was Saturday, but it wasn't. It was Friday. And I'm like,
yeah.
Because it's like the same day.
It is.
The same day. And we're working in our home offices, and every day is the same day.
Same day.
And I'm very blessed and thankful that I've got projects and I've got things, but it's the same day. Four walls. Yeah. But it's part of our habitual lives. And I know that all of us are going to be so grateful when we start getting back to, we go back Monday to a new normal of restaurants opening up, and
oh wow,
slowly.
That's not happening up here that I'm aware of, but
yes,
it is. That's in Miami. Wow.
Our mayor was on yesterday, and slowly there's all kinds of plans in the works, but wow, we're just going to be so appreciative. I know I'm going to be so appreciative just sitting somewhere and having a cup of coffee and just being.
Wow, I'm surprised.
Do that. Yeah.
I'm really surprised. Wow, I didn't know that it was happening. Like, I don't think it's happening up here at all. I don't hear any of that. But I haven't put the news on. I'll have to put it on tonight or tomorrow or Sunday night. I know the 18th they were talking about maybe opening, but
that's Monday.
I'm not. I hadn't heard anything from any of my boot campers say, because they're usually on it. If I don't think they know how to open. I mean, Massachusetts is a little bit, not like New York, but has had a lot of cases and is probably one of the highest in the country, as up there with New York. Not New York, say those numbers, but it's close. And I mean, I don't know how they're going to actually do it safely where there's still so much unknown.
There's a lot of unknown
about it. And I had just, not to dwell on this, but it is part of what's happening now. Is I was reading an article from a young girl who wrote it, and she was, I think, African-American. Her skin color is dark, so I'm just assuming that. And she, I think, was in late 20s. And she said, one day I was out running like 5 to 10 miles, doing my thing. The next day I was sick, couldn't breathe. I was like hunched over, like could not breathe. I was in the hospital.
Oh my God.
and then her point was, you know, she was saying like the doctors there were really kind in the hospital. I think she must have been in Brooklyn or something. And the physicians were great, but they couldn't do anything really to help her more. She didn't need a ventilator. She, you know, like, but she was sick enough to be in the hospital, but she didn't need a ventilator.
Gosh, I hope that she's
fortunately.
okay.
And she is, she is, but that was like a month ago. And
Yeah.
she's like, I still have,
wow,
you know, like I'm still not like how I was pre-illness. And she's like, people don't realize how bad this is. And on another level, she did speak about her demographic, and she felt like that, you know, how our medical institutions have negotiated, you know, our health care. So, you know, here is the prostitute again, where the prostitute might have sold out and didn't do things for health care. I mean, we have good health care in this country, but not, when we're looking at this, we're seeing a problem with it. Like, it's like, wow, we got a serious issue here, and our government officials need to get their shit together and not be bumping heads, you know, all these years, and straighten things out, because this is just, you know, you look at other countries that have it under control, so to speak. You know,
well, it's a different economic system. And
yeah, exactly.
A lot of people need to understand that our economic system is very different than the European economic system.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how we move forward, because our systems are all very different.
Yeah. But and being, you know, like if we go back to, you know, control and seduction, it's like, where are we as a whole in our country being seduced to do other things that aren't providing for, you know, segments of the community, because we still have those little threads of, well, you know, she said it in the article, we're an expendable group, the Black community or Hispanic community. She said it in the article. And I'm like, God, I don't feel like that, you know, like towards that segment, you know, or towards people of color. Woman that I was talking about in the article that I read, this young girl, the young girl, she wrote this article in the New York Times, and she was saying that she had COVID-19, but she was a young Black woman in her 20s, and don't think that this can't hit you. And
it can hit children.
Yes. And she was saying there was other young people that had it, and it's not just for the age, and she said she was healthy. That's what struck me about the article. But the other side of it was, she's a Black woman in an area where COVID-19 really hit the community in New York. And people are like, well, it's New York, it's an urban city, it's a Black community, who cares? That's
sad,
you know, but that consensus, I'm not saying that's people that I know, but I have heard that being said, and you know, amongst other people. And I'm like, that's just so wrong. And if we still have that mindset, it's
a lot of things have to change.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of things have to change, and it's not going to happen overnight.
Absolutely. I know. Yeah.
And it starts with ourselves, and we're not here to tell you what to do, because I'm not that way.
Yeah.
I think we're here to
I know you're not, but we're talking about it to get people to think about these things, and about this new world that we are in the process
of creating. But it's going to take so much time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. And we have to have a lot of faith, and we have to know that energetically, how are we sabotaging ourselves? How are we prostituting ourselves with things that are happening?
Exactly.
And like we had talked about earlier, the prostitute is the keeper of our faith.
Yeah.
Because when we have faith, we can see situations that we might not want to do. Otherwise, we do them if we don't have that faith. faith because we're in survival, because we have to negotiate, because we're in fear. And these are all the elements that are in the air right now. They're in our lives. There's so much uncertainty. There's so much chaos. There's so much miscommunication and misinformation. And where is the truth? And where does it lie within all of this?
Yeah.
But what we need to do is just stop. And like we've been sharing, just take a moment to just go within, and it's just going to be interesting as our days go on and as we start opening up and how things develop. It's going to be very interesting what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
and going in and listening to our own inner voice.
Totally.
Getting in there and out with those old energies and maybe not listen to that ego voice, but really start to identify with that
and
universal truth voice.
Right. And how we're disregarding ourselves.
Yeah.
And disregarding our joys and our passions because we've compromised and we've basically sabotaged and prostituted things that no longer serve us with our values.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Right. Oh, wow.
I know, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm just having wow, just there's so much about some of these older dynamics. But
it's going to take a long time.
Yeah, it does.
It's not going to be in the snip of an eye. I think this is the beginning of a journey that we're going to be on for a while. And I'm not talking about COVID-19, but I'm talking about the state of the world and looking at it through different eyes, through a different lens, with more inclusion, more authenticity, and more truth. And we just have to be patient with ourselves and with others and understand that it's a process. Yeah. It's a process. And in this process, we want to know how you're going through it and how your journey is. And it's important for you to be aware and to check yourself and to understand that you can start doing things in a different way. Just become aware of it.
Yeah, and have compassion and tolerance and understanding, compassion for one another, tolerance for one another. I mean, I know, I stood in line one day and I'm ready to, I don't like waiting in line.
I know that's a hard one because we've never had to stand in line to go to the grocery store.
Well, when somebody cuts you, just walks
in Miami.
If this happened elsewhere, it was up in New Hampshire, and
they cut in front of you.
Yeah, and she, if she glanced at me and just gave me a little, a little, could I sneak in or something?
Wow,
I would have been fine, but she completely ignored me. And then I could feel my, rise up and I was like, it took me a little while to let that calm down. And that's just a normal instinctual thing because she didn't honor or respect me. And I came to understand that it's probably because she didn't honor and respect herself. Which I'm to go ahead and do that without complete disregard. And I just was like, oh, wow. I would have been fine letting her in line, but she just did it with, just walked in and, stood there. What the hell?
Funny.
I know,
but it's hard.
But I had to, hold myself back and say, okay, how am I going to relate? Or react. I could have reacted,
right?
In a negative way. I could have said, "What the hell are you doing, lady?" BITCH, Or I could, relate to the situation.
You could say, "Sure, you can come up behind me."
Yeah, exactly. Or I don't want to wait in line, or how was I gonna respond? And I chose not to. I'll just be like, okay. I mean, there was a lot of people behind me, too. So I was like,
that's the thing, that when you go out, I mean, I was lucky. I had to jump into the store today for a brief moment, but sometimes there's lines. And you have to wait.
Yeah, that little, the entitlement thing's got to go.
It does have to go. And that's one of the things that I know is happening a lot. We get it down here all the time. I mean, there was a guy today riding his bike when I went out on the sidewalk, and he almost ran over somebody. And I'm like, we don't ride bikes on sidewalks.
Yeah.
But it's just that part of, entitlement.
Yeah. And people, doing things with lack of consideration or, understanding for what other people.
But I have faith.
I do too. I mean, I know things will improve, but it's other people that you're kind of waiting for to catch up a little bit. Maybe sometimes.
Yeah. It's patience. Right.
What's that? I missed that.
Patience.
Absolutely. Patience is, we typically want maybe things like the Prada bag or the Lysol.
I really don't want that
or the
toilet
paper. The toilet paper, what people were hoarding. But and then we like to be seduced with a fast track, get rich kind of, or take the shortcuts in life. There's not going to be a shortcut here.
That's why we have to be very aware, because it's a seduction of ourselves, and we prostitute us because all of a sudden we're like, oh, if we do this, we can be rich, or we can get all this money, and it doesn't work that way. And we were talking about it the other day, and somebody was throwing up a challenge, and we this person made a ton of money overnight, but what we didn't, we found out later was this person had a business for over 7 years, 5 years.
Yeah. And they took the time to build that. So the whole story isn't exactly,
it's not like, oh, let's start a business today and
and then boom, you made millions or whatever. It takes time to do things.
It takes time, and you have to build your client base, and and patience and having a lot of faith, and the negotiation of your power.
Yeah. And I guess the point I wanted to make earlier about your power is if somebody like the prostitute can also be, taking away somebody's power.
Right.
If you know that they're weak and that they're going to sell themselves short, you might be in a position where you might, and that's a negative prostitute in you, because you're taking their power away.
You're taking their
it
power.
Works. Yeah. Like
you're taking their ideas, you're taking their projects.
Yes.
And you're making them your own. And that's another negative side. Yeah. But we wanted to give everybody a taste. We're going to go deeper into these archetypes and share more and stories, because I love telling stories, and I think that's the best way to learn, is learn through stories. And boy, do we have a lot of stories to share.
Definitely.
All the adventures that we've been on together have been crazy.
Man. Some fun stuff for sure.
Crazy.
Yeah. So we got to make sure there's emotional honesty and openness with speaking your truth, as we move forward.
That's really important. And that we're living in an information overload age. This is just so much information you can get. Like, you open up, your Google, and you search, and it's like 100 million things that you could do. So discernment, and we talked about discernment, having discernment, and being aware. Being aware of where it's coming from and what you're doing.
And not manipulating other people through seduction. It's one thing, like, you can be seduced by different things, whether or not it is right for you. Like, oh, this looks really good, I think I want to go here. But what are the reasons why you might be going here when that's really not in alignment with you, when you end up selling your own integrity? But it's also, how we might manipulate things to get what we want.
Right.
In different,
manipulating ways. And then using others.
Yeah.
Using others for our own personal gain.
Yeah.
Or using others to get what we want. And then, what's going to happen afterwards. So it's important to be aware, and we're living in a time where anything can happen, and we're scrambling. We're scrambling.
Right.
So this is good stuff, Shell. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Good stuff. We're like the little butterfly in the cocoon. We go back there.
Yeah.
Little cocoon in the butterfly.
Totally. So, do you have anything else you want to add, or?
No, just that I really, want people to be patient. If there's anything we can leave you with, is seduction of yourself today, and just the times that we're living, is just to be patient with yourself and go to the simplicity. I know a lot of my friends are having to downsize because they just can't keep up, because their jobs have been they're cut back, their hours have cut back. A couple of them have businesses and things aren't going. You haven't planned ahead for what was going to happen, and a lot of people are just scrambling. And I think part of this is just patience. You have to be patient to see, just be patient with yourselves. Don't be so hard on yourselves.
Yeah, be kind to yourself.
Right.
Be kind and gentle. Yeah.
Yes.
And patience is going to be a big one, I think, for all of us.
I know it has been. It has been.
Yeah.
I was very patient standing in line. I was very patient going to those 5 stores looking for that Lysol can. But in the end, it's the simple things that really make life, worth living, and the meanings behind life.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, shall we finish with a little? I have a navel meditate, like breathing exercise.
I love the breathing exercise.
A relaxation, but then too, if you think, I have some questions where if you're deep inside, this is the start of meditating. This is how you go inside, is you breathe, you relax your nervous system, you get comfortable, and then you start to become aware of what internally is going on. But I do have some questions to familiarize yourself with your prostitute. So if you'd like, I have a few questions. They're directly from Carolyn Myss. I'll give her complete credit. They're questions out of one of her books on how to familiarize yourself with the prostitute archetype. And it's very simple questions, and believe me, you'll get answers when you're relaxed. And this is how you would go about navigating in the world currently, and finding how am I relating and responding and reacting to certain things, stimulus that are externally from out us, but then tapping into the internal instead and getting the clear, like last episode, we talked about getting clear sight and seeing with the 2020 vision.
2020, and it's the year 2020. So it's all about this year is all about clarity and doing away with what no longer serves us, or our systems that no longer serves us. Well, I can't wait to listen to the questions.
Okay,
shoot away.
So, if you hadn't listened to some of the other 2 podcasts, we talked about belly breathing. So we're going to just up the ante from the first and the second one, and we're going to go right into today. We're going to just settle in. Make sure you're not driving. Find a comfortable seated position, or if you want to lie down, you can lie down. But basically, what you're going to do is close your eyes, place your hand on your navel, both hands on your navel, and as you breathe in through the nose and pull the oxygen, just follow it in, down through the throat, down through the heart, filling up the lungs. Feel the chest rise, feel the rib cage expand outward, and the belly pushes out like a balloon. And then as you exhale, the belly contracts close to the spine, the rib cage contracts towards the spine, and the chest falls. So just follow your breath and become comfortable and come into a natural breathing state. And as you relax, start to take an inventory of your body, maybe just noticing if there's anything that might feel tense, and just start to relax. You could start at your toes, relaxing your toes up through your feet, your ankles, and feeling them relax. Feel your calves relax, your shins, your knees, your thighs, and just feel them relaxing, deeper, relaxing your hamstrings and glutes, and then bringing it up into your reproductive area, in your stomach, your intestines, all your internal organs like your liver and kidneys, like the lower back and stomach, the sides, and up through the lungs and your rib cage, and all the muscles in your back and arms, Maybe your shoulders start to relax downward away from the ears. And any tension in your throat relaxes as you relax your biceps and your forearms and your fingers and palms. And then to your jaw, bring your awareness back up through your face, any tension in the back of your head, all the way up through the eyes, maybe at the center of the head, at your third eye, and all the way to the crown. And just feeling really relaxed. And you're just breathing naturally and effortlessly. And so let's get familiar with the prostitute. This is your prostitute. This is the person. This is the cookie cutter characteristic energy that is warning, that is your ally. This is your ally and your guardian of faith, and utilizing that virtue of faith, calling in source energy. So if you're not familiar with your prostitute, you can identify the archetype by asking yourself, have you ever sold out to people or organizations that you didn't truly believe in? Or have you ever remained in a compromising situation because of a desire for financial security? Or have you ever put another person in a position of compromising him or herself in order to gain power over that individual? Or have you ever offered to help another who is weakened by their prostitute archetype? And if any thoughts are coming to mind, just let them pass. Just make a mental note of it. Maybe you can go back to it at a later time. But another question you might want to ask is, do I judge others because they continually compromise themselves? Or have I ever felt myself being pulled into a circumstance that would require me to sell out my ethics, but then found myself strong enough to say no and create a boundary? So that's the essence of the prostitute archetype, and how it's your ally to make you aware of where you negotiate your faith. And just sit with that for a few minutes and notice what came up. And let's bring you all back. So if you want to wiggle your fingers or wiggle your toes, open your eyes.
That was really nice.
And thank Carolyn for that one. She just lays it all out there, identifies it, and great questions, easy questions. I know I probably could answer yes to all of them. Yeah, right? That's what makes them universal. We're dealing with them all the time.
Got it. But it's about being aware, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
Being aware.
Totally.
It's been a fun show.
Absolutely. Just really good. I'm like, wow. So a brief recap. Your prostitute is your ally who puts you on alert every time you contemplate shifting your faith from the divine by being seduced by physical experiences that negotiate your true power. There you go. That is it in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. So our next show, we will discuss ego talk. Oh boy, the ego. And that whole idea of fake it till you make it philosophy that actually is really no longer really serving us.
It doesn't. It doesn't serve you at all.
So I want to thank you for joining us. We both want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Episode about the seduction of ourselves.
Yes.
If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review, because it helps people find the show, and it also will give us some feedback. So we know what you're interested in and what you might not be interested in. But it's also on the review, mention how we might have motivated or inspired you. It really does help us out. never miss an episode from Evolve 360 by remembering to subscribe or download on iTunes. Or you can follow us at facebook.com/Evolve 360 Life. This is
Cheli Grace
and Shelley Devine
the Cheli Show.
with Life Unplugged, raw and real.
Yes.
Until next time, thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.